hearing me? And if you're seeing my screen clearly, please, you can just type it in the chat. Are you guys hearing me? Can you see my screen clearly?
Yes, miss.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Oh, you guys, thanks. All right, let's go. Hold on, just admitting some people that are in the waiting room. Okay, so afternoon, everyone. For those who are ahead of us, might just be 3 o'clock. Part-time effort yields part-time results. So can anybody tell me what this means? I know it probably seems irrelevant, but we'll get into it. Somebody please open your mic. Can you hear me clearly? Are you guys hearing me?
Yes, miss.
Okay, I said what's on the screen. Part-time effort yields part-time results. I want somebody to tell me what that means to them.
The amount of effort that you would put in is the result, the type of result that you will get in return.
Okay, thanks, Mia. That's a really good explanation, and it is true. What you put in is really what you get out. You can't expect to create a masterpiece if you are not continuously putting in the work for that to become a masterpiece. All right?
Half measures never really get the job done.
That's true, Nicholas. It doesn't. So welcome, guys. My name is Aniska. Today I'll be your tutor for Sociology Unit 1, and we're going to be discussing paper 2. I know some of you might feel a little bit nervous or that this is going to be long. Please note that the YouTube video that's online, it had 2 tutors rather than 1. So that 5-hour thing is not going to happen again. I'm just making that clear. All right? I want to know if anybody has any questions. I know persons had questions earlier today. They were sharing it in the WhatsApp group. Anybody else with any questions, raise your hand. I'll notify you, I'll identify you rather, and afterwards I'll let you speak and then I'll answer the question. Anybody with any questions? Nobody? Oh, okay, Tony, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Tony, afternoon.
All right, so the question that I had is on sociological imagination. I was asking how important it is for us to use it or implement it in our essays.
What is sociological imagination, Tony?
So sociological imagination, that's when I know of 2 definitions of it. One is when you can use it to recall like past experiences, and then the other one is where you explain a perspective without, and when you explain it, it's as if you have no knowledge of the perspective. So it's like you're unbiased.
Okay. Did you use sociological imagination in your school-based assessment?
Why I miss you? No, seminar member.
Okay. So you said in your second definition, you noted that it was unbiased when you're explaining your perspective. That's really where it comes in when it comes on to paper 2. So what you want to do is incorporate an aspect of it, and the aspect is your second definition, being unbiased. So in answering a question, try as much as possible, even though sociologists, they can rarely do this, but try as much as possible to remain unbiased in your answers. You can keep your stance however you want to, but just try to remain as unbiased as you can. All right?
All right, thank you very much, Miss.
You're welcome. Any other questions? You can lower your hand, Tony. All right, if we don't have any more questions, let's get into it. So first I want to talk about the introduction because that's really the first part of paper 2. So a lot of you may have already written practice essays and you might think that, okay, the introduction is just, it and the conclusion is just a short part and, you just need to kind of do a little thing, write a thesis and all of that. Here's the thing, the entire paper will be marked and not just the body. You must emphasize, or I should say that you should have enthusiasm throughout all of your paper. You should make sure that the paper is a grade A paper. Here's why. You see, if you miss the ball with something in your body, in a body paragraph, for example, you don't get to fill it in, having an amazing introduction, it really does set your paper, like it sets a standard for the other papers, because remember that you're marked in comparison to other papers, right? Now, if somebody were to take up your paper, a marker takes up your paper after having maybe 1,000 papers to mark, or let's say 500, because that's a bit much. 500 papers this specific marker has, and they take up your paper. The introduction is boring. No, if I were marking that paper, I would literally put it down. I'd probably go and eat my dinner, or I'd probably go and get some coffee or something to deal with this essay, because obviously it is going to be long and boring. Now, if you really want to write a CAPE level paper, a sociology paper that meets the standard of being advanced, because this is an advanced exam, you want to make sure that your introduction is, first of all, it is literally out of this world. So if I read your introduction, I should want to read more. It should be so captivating. So here are some things that you want to note when you're writing an introduction. You need an original statement or an inspiring quote. Now, a lot of persons may choose to write a quote, the general and the generic ones, education is the passport to the future, something else about success. I'm not telling you to write something generic, something that you hear all the time. Write something that is relevant to the question. You want to make sure that whatever you're writing in your introduction, whatever those first 3 lines are, they make sense, or you can link them to your thesis. You don't want to go off topic. So don't come in with education is the passport to the future. If you're going to write on education, don't do that. Don't do it. Just don't do it. I would not mark that paper. I'd do something before marking that paper. Probably would I leave that paper there for last. I'm just being very honest. Write an original statement, right? Something that you heard or you saw in a book, or something that somebody said. I find that persons who have knowledge of probably some historic event and they can link that to whatever question they have, that's like very analytical. That's very good. So you can think about doing that as well. Secondly, you want to have a captivating thesis, because why not? Why would you not have a captivating thesis? Come on. Alyssa, can you tell me what the thesis is and where does it go in the introduction, please? Alyssa. All right, I'm not hearing from Alyssa. Can somebody please tell me what the thesis is and where in the introduction it should go?
Your thesis is the last statement in your introductory paragraph.
Yeah, that's true.
And it consists of the 3 or 4 points that you're going to elaborate on within the body.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Yolanda Reed.
Okay, Yolanda, thanks for answering. You can just rename your device. I want to be able to identify you properly. Perfect. So thanks, Yolanda. So like Yolanda said, and you guys already know that as thesis, it's literally the last sentence of your introduction, and it will be just the points that you make that you'll elaborate on further down in the body. And we'll get more into this, but I want you guys to understand that the introduction is a very important part. It's the first part. It's literally like breakfast. And most of you might not eat breakfast and you might not function well. It is the start, and the start really tells you how the finish is going to go. So you have to start well in order to end well. Then we need a relevant attention getter. So the attention getter is the first sentence. You want to make sure, and that can be an inspiring quote as well. You want to make sure that the attention getter does what it says, literally gets attention. All right, and we spoke about getting the attention of the marker before. All right, moving on. So for the body, Now, our topic sentences must be directly related to the thesis, and a lot of persons don't know how to do this. They might know how to write an introduction, but then when they come out of the introduction, going into the body, they just get lost, right? So here's the thing. When you talk about the body, just as we have our human body, you need different parts of it. You need basically three parts. You need the head, you need the feet, and you need in the middle. So the three parts of a body paragraph are basically, it starts with the topic sentence, and the topic sentence really, it really highlights what is in the thesis. So let's say your first point is going to be something like, can I use family for this? Yeah, let's use family. So let's say that you're going to discuss the family, and your first point is how important the family is, how the functionalist sees the family. Let's say you're going to contrast functionalist perspective of the family versus the Marxist perspective of the family, right? So your first topic sentence, when you're talking about the functionalist perspective of the family, you want to make sure that you outline first what you're going to use, what you're going to say in the body paragraph. So don't just start it like that. You have to make sure that you say, okay, functionalists view families in a specific way, and you say that, right? Then you start going into what you're going into. You don't just dive in. You have to kind of get your toes wet first. Yeah, so you start with a topic sentence that's directly related to the thesis. Then you have three clear points that are logically ordered. You want to make sure that in this body paragraph, the body of it, basically, you have those 3 points that you're going to talk about. So whether you're going to include the statistics, or you're going to include an example, or you have your explanation, and then you're going to link it to something that in our society, you want to be able to have those 3 points. Then that would make it fully developed. Because when you have those 3 points within the body paragraph, you are basically proving what you would have said in the thesis, right? Then your clincher sentence is like the feet. It's where you end the paragraph. So the clincher sentence will come back and be linked to the topic sentence, which is, linked to the thesis. So everything, it really just comes together, and that's what makes the body paragraph special. It really does. All right, so moving on. Here's something that teachers have had to say. This is a past paper report that was done a few years ago. I need somebody to read this. Anybody? I need somebody to read this. You
Yes,
can just
I'll read
open
it.
your mic. Okay, thanks, Tony. Go ahead.
Of the candidates attempting the question, 5.7% performed at levels ranging from excellent to exemplary. And approximately 26.7% provided responses that were good or very good. 47.6% of the responses were satisfactory. Weaker responses demonstrated limited knowledge of social mobility patterns in the Caribbean and failed to apply a relevant theory or a study of the phenomena. Responses in this category focused on an elaboration of the concept of social mobility in general without making connections to Caribbean society in the contemporary period. Average responses demonstrated sociological understandings of social mobility patterns in the Caribbean and attempted to apply these patterns by using relevant studies, but failed to demonstrate the applicability of occupational and educational attainment and/or gender differences to contemporary society. Outstanding higher level responses applied the chosen perspective in the context of the types or patterns of mobility identified in Caribbean society. Arguments focused on the realities of the Caribbean society and concluded that although achievement criteria were expected to promote upward social mobility, this has not been equally reflected in the patterns identified in relevant studies of social mobility in the Caribbean society.
Thanks, Tony. So, guys, you'll hear me talk a lot. Can you guys hear me? Are you guys hearing me clearly?
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, perfect. I wasn't seeing my mic moving, sorry. So you'll hear me talk about past paper reports a little bit more in our session.
Yes.
But I want, Brianna, you okay?
Yes, miss.
Okay, perfect. I want you guys to get why it's important to hear from the markers themselves. If you are going to, let's say, get something for your 10-year-old sibling, you probably think about the things that you wanted at 10 years old, or you probably consider the type of person that your sibling is. In the same breath, if you want to pass or even ace a paper two, you have to not only hear from the markers themselves, but put yourselves in their shoes. Now, every year, persons focus on the syllabus and they focus on the past papers. Past papers more than the syllabus, and both of these more than they focus on the reports. But every year, teachers, they actually, after marking, they come together and they give a report of how well students answered the questions, and they actually tell students how better they could have answered the questions. Now, this works for a lot of persons who would have failed an exam and they're going to resit it. But it can also work for persons who haven't done exams yet and persons who they're specializing in that area and they weren't really happy with the grade that they got, right? So this is one report of a question on social mobility. All right, so as you can see in the second paragraph, it speaks about persons who didn't respond well. Then you have persons in the third paragraph who were just average, and then you have the outstanding or higher level responses. Now you want to make sure that you aim for those higher level responses. And in reading this, we can identify that not only were the outstanding persons be able to argue more, but they were able to actually put it in our society, or they're actually able to just make sure that they show the relevance of it in the Caribbean society. You want to make sure that when you're answering the questions, you can apply it not only to your school or your country, but the society on a whole. Please find examples of the Caribbean society on a whole. So if you have the Hollerambos and Holborn textbook, you'll note that sometimes they just put like a case study or something in perspective. It's important that they have those. Don't overlook those. When you can link whatever you're writing, not you don't just have the knowledge, but the application is a mark that you get. If you can apply it to something that has happened recently, trust me, you're going to get a lot of marks. For example, I think you have something to say, Yolanda?
So question is, if it's in the case where like they ask a question about inequality, right?
Yeah.
And they say you must use like a theory. And you see that inequality, like whatever you're expounding on, like inequality in educational system, like you can give an example where it is public, where
you
it
should
is
give
public,
an example.
where
Yes.
it is publicly, or is it in the case where you can give a scenario where you know of something that
No,
happened
Yolanda,
in the
hold
school?
on. You're getting ahead of yourself, and remember to change your device's name. Here's the thing, Yolanda, you don't want to give an example that is just regular or something that you know of. You're not giving a personal experience. You're writing an advanced paper. You're going to give something that is relevant to the society, something that has happened, something that people know about. People know about the earthquake that just happened in, I think, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. People know about, I think there was a bomb that went off in Haiti. You need to literally have updates of current affairs. And you need to have, that's literally you're supposed to keep abreast with all of that. Hold on, Tony. And whichever paper you get, whichever question you get, you know of so many scenarios in the Caribbean that you can literally apply it at any time. You can give something that happened years ago. You can talk about, if you're talking about inequality in education, you can probably discuss the amount of students who do a specific subject at the University of the West Indies. And I'm just using that school as an example because UE is a Caribbean school. You can talk about how there are 90% of males in the engineering faculty of the University of the West Indies, but in recent times, there have been more females. And yeah, you can just discuss further with that. Tony, go ahead with your question.
Yes, miss. I was saying, miss, in that particular scenario that Yolanda said, Miss, could you talk about the hidden curriculum
You can speak about the hidden curriculum.
and male marginalization as well?
Yes, of course. Whatever you're expounding on, you have to make sure that it's factual. You don't have to know the exact date or exact statistics, though it would help if you had that information. But all I'm saying is whatever you're using, don't use an example from your community or a personal example. Use something that people are aware of more. Brianna, go ahead.
For me, so I just wanted that clarification to say that, like, for instance, the same inequality topic, if we're saying, like, for instance, the Marxist perspective on it, and then we can find an example, like a global example, and we can just bring it in. Okay, all right.
Yes, global examples are great, Brianna, but also remember that if they didn't ask you for a global example, you don't have to give one. It's best to use Caribbean examples.
Yes, miss, that's what I mean by when I said the
Yeah. Stick to the territory, guys, because you don't want to be talking about George Floyd and we live here, even though it impacted all of the world. You just want kind of narrow it down and keep the relevance within the Caribbean. All right. So any other questions? Thanks for that, Felicia. You can look in the chat. Felicia mentioned something as well. All right, if we don't have any more questions, let's move on. So like I was saying, you want to make sure that you have an outstanding or higher level response to the question, to whichever question you get, all right? Now let's go into the conclusion. So in writing, hold on, before we go to the conclusion, let me just make these points. You want to remain relevant, you want to use statistics.
Miss,
yeah, go ahead.
Miss, I was just asking, Miss, if you could let me take a picture of the previous slide, the one that was about the body paragraph. So I've just jot the notes.
Tony, if you want to write. I don't want you guys to be taking pictures of it because chances are you won't go back to them, and even if you go back to them, you might go back to them 5 minutes before the exam. So let me tell you what they are. So one, you're going to have relevant topic sentences.
Yes, miss.
Two, you're going to have 3 clear points, which helps you to have a fully developed paragraph.
Yes, miss.
And then 3, you want to make sure that you have a clincher sentence at the end that is linked to your topic sentence before, and that's ultimately linked to the thesis.
Okay, all right, miss.
Right? Okay, perfect. So here are some things to remember. You need to remain relevant. So do not talk about anything that is not relevant. You need to use statistics, make sure that you have something in your head. If you don't know the exact number, you say over 70%, you say over 60%, you say under 20%, you say the level of employment has increased more than whatever percent. You understand? But don't use some statistics, it will help. Add extra textual information. You want to be able to add not just only theories. You don't want to just have the general information or the theories, you know. You want to have like the critiques from different persons and know the person's names, and not only those things, but you know, like maybe you saw something from a newspaper and you can talk about how media has influenced whatever and however, but just have some other textual information, something that maybe a scholar wrote, something that maybe somebody who is a legislator talked about, have some extra textual information. Then you want to stay on topic, and this ties in with remaining relevant. Too many students go off topic when they're talking. So you'll be talking about, let's stick with the example of education and inequality in education. You'll be talking about that. And before we know it, you reach a uniform. Caroni, all right? I see you connecting your audio. Yeah, before you know it, yeah, you reach a the uniform, you reach a whole people used to wear different types of shoes, and yeah, if it's relevant, you can include it, but don't go regurgitating or using a story from whenever. Don't do that. Just instead remain on the topic. Just remain on topic. All right, so here we go into the conclusion. So when you're writing a conclusion, be sure that you have no new ideas and you need to be able to link it back to the thesis. So in your conclusion, every single thing that you would have said before is summarizing it. I'm pretty sure you guys know all of this already, but I really want to reinforce the fact that it's an essay and you want to be able to write the essay as best as possible. Don't leave out, don't overlook the fact that the essay in and of itself is what is being marked. And when you look at the structure of it and the markers, they hear your diction and it's not too simple and you can apply this and you can apply that and you answer the questions perfectly within the body, it makes your essay holistic. It doesn't just leave it to being average or, below average, right? So let's go into sociology. Unit 1 now. This is how they mark, and I'm not going to let you guys take a picture of this. I'm just gonna go quickly over this because this is actually in the syllabus. Guys, I don't know if you guys know, but the syllabus is like over 300 pages, but people only tend to look at the first maybe 50. Recognize that at the bottom of the syllabus, there's so much knowledge that you can have. Look how much they mark you for each thing. And this is probably where you ask teachers, how do I get marked for this on my essay or whatever? But look at it, look at the bottom of this page. You see level 1 response. It's judged to be outstanding or exemplary. This is what you want to know. You want to make sure, say, look what 8 marks gives you. Outstanding, knowledge of facts and concepts. You have to know it. Yeah, don't make it unsatisfactory, right? So this is how they mark. This is the mark scheme. All right, sorry guys, a second. Let me show you guys one more thing before we go into sociology. All right, so here we have something else that you guys can note when you're looking into this. So here's the procedure for holistic marking, sociology paper 2. You're going to review, you're going to read, and you're going to reread. All right, here's another point, but I didn't get it in this. I want you guys to look in the syllabus because this is in the syllabus actually. So let me get somebody to read what review says, please, somebody.
Review the description.
You can go ahead.
Review. 1. Review the descriptions of the qualities to be assessed. 2. Review the scoring rubrics, the scale which indicates the marks to be awarded for the specified level of performance on each quality. 3. Review the overall quality standards, which show the range of marks associated with the categories of responses ranging from excellent to unsatisfactory. Note briefly, all essay questions carry a maximum of 25 marks.
Okay, thank you, Brianna. So you guys have exam on Tuesday. So when you finish your exam, I don't expect that no one is going to have time to look in depth and go over because literally it seems like, the time goes away when it comes on to writing a paper. But these are specific things that you want to be able to do. So you have to, guys, you have to stay within the time that you tell. So if you see yourself going off track, like for example, you're supposed to be writing the essay, you're supposed to take 40 minutes, and you realize that probably 35 minutes, you're still at the 3rd paragraph, and you start the conclusion yet. Skip that. Leave that alone. You can't come back and write that. Start going in your next essay. It is better for you to write. It is better for you to write a complete essay, but it's better for you to write a complete essay and a piece of conclusion. Well, 2 complete essays and a piece of conclusion, then you write a full one nice, and then the next one you only write half. You can't always go back and write one conclusion in like 30 seconds. Try to. But if you give yourself specific time, so let's say you decide that in the exam you're going to take 5 minutes to look over, and I really recommend this. Take 5 minutes to look at the paper, and when you look at the paper, you decide which questions you're going to answer. You're going to write your points on the paper if you can, and write them down for each question that you're going to answer. Breathe, of course, breathe. You can do this before or after you do that. And then start answering the questions. Don't just go into it. Sometimes you might see the questions you want to answer. You say, okay, this is what I'm going to answer. This is how I'm going to answer it. And you say that in like 15 seconds, it goes by so fast that you don't even remember what you were going to say about the question when you get to it. So I recommend once you open the paper and you see what you're going to deal with, you note your points, you go to the next question, you note your points, and that shouldn't take 5 minutes. If it does, then just start one essay because it seems like you don't know what you're going to write. So when you reach there, you cross that bridge. All I'm saying is, guys, if you do this, you will have enough time to write because then you would have already made your points. Once you write your points, once you write your essays, that would mean that you have enough time to review. So once you do that, you'll be okay. And please reread, like they say. Reread to make sure that you did not make any grammatical errors because that will actually mess you up. Joshua, please go ahead with your question. Joshua, you have a question? I'm not hearing you, Joshua. I'm not sure what's wrong.
All right, so Miss, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm asking, all right, so it's level 1 to level 7. So does that mean like it represents like the grade or just it hasn't like since the grades that you can get are like 1 to 7, do these marks represent that grade that you're most likely to get if you fall within like that mark category?
Yeah, this is what you get. So if your response is very good, you'll earn a total somewhere in between 19 to 21. If your response is limited, you'll earn between 10 and 12 marks. If your response is excellent, you'll earn between 22 and 24. What's up? Go again.
I meant if that relates to like the grade, like whether you get 1 or 2.
Yes, Joshua, ultimately, because if these are your grades, then at the end of the day, when all of your essays are marked and they're added up, then you'll know how much you get.
All right, thank you.
The point I'm making with these responses that you see here, Joshua, is basically you noting that if you decide that you're going to say to yourself, all right, I don't know nothing upon this topic here, I just go write what I can remember, you probably will have a satisfactory one. So you can think within yourself, all right, 13 points, 13 marks, that can go on, this is what you should recognize, that this is probably what you're gonna get. All right. So let's get into it because we've gone like 3 minutes past the time that we're supposed to be here. So in defining sociology, we all know what sociology is, and if we don't, then we need to go back to module 1, topic 1, because that is basically what we're here for. We know that it's a systematic study. We know that it explains human behavior. We know that Comte came up with it. We know that it's a social science. And if you don't know those things, then you're probably not going full marks. Now, Caribbean sociologists, you might know a few, you don't have to know all. Hold on. Guys, you can hear me clearly?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss. Can hear you clearly, miss.
Okay, perfect. So you might know a few sociologists. You don't have to know all of them. I'm just letting you know that you don't have to go into your book and think, okay, Comte, Parsons, Durkheim. You don't have to go into your books and know, like everyone, know at least 2 for each theory, right? At least 2. If you know more, kudos to you, chef's kiss. But do not try to force yourself to remember all of these persons' names. Of course, you'll need them for paper 1, but for now, just know who they are or what they're linked to. Because if you get somebody's name on a paper 2 for a question, you don't know the person's name, chances are you never study, because they usually put popular persons' names on paper 2s if they're going to include them in the questions. You don't know any of these persons, M.G. Smith, Lloyd Brathwaite, George Beckford. I wonder if you're ready for Tuesday if you don't know them, but you have to know at least one of them. Anybody knows anybody here? You know them, right? Right, guys?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Oh,
Yes, miss.
bit
Yes,
tough.
miss.
I'd be a little bit worried, but guys, just please know most of them. Right, moving on. So sociology as a science, you know, it includes positivity. You have the empiricism, you have the objective views, you know, that it's value free and that it's cumulative. So if you get a question talking about defining sociology or talking about sociology as a science, you see when you go in that question, you're supposed to put your foot in that. When you come out of that question there, I don't give it you all in, because remember you have 2 more questions. But if in module 1 you get a question like this, if you don't mash it up, I don't know what's next. Chances are the rest of the paper now goes a hot. I'm gonna deal on this. So you're supposed to know everything about sociology as a science. All right? Know that it has correlations, know all of these things. These are the things that you want to know. And refer to the syllabus. You see, if you use the syllabus as like a study guide, you can know, because the syllabus has them in a list. So once you say, okay, cool, these are the factors associated with sociology as a science. It's value free, it's cumulative, and if you can explain all of these, guys, you're on your way. If you can explain all of them, so be sure to explain all of these. Now for the theories, we know that we have the macro theories and the micro theories, and trust me, guys, do not overthink it. I know a lot of you might think that, all right, I need to know every single depth and every single detail. You see, once you know the broad thing about theories, you can understand how theories are when you get into it. You know, you have conflict and consensus for the macro theories, and then for micro theories, they're more interpretive. So you have like rational choice theory, symbolic interaction, you have phenomenology, all of those things. Let's talk about functionalism a little bit. Please be sure to know the elements of functionalism. And like I said, at least 2 sociologists. So here we have Durkheim and we have Parson. Can talk about the year or the century. If you don't remember the year, at least know the century. If you have an understanding of the century, I mean, it would be better to know the year, but if you have an understanding, you might get a good mark rather than just a satisfactory mark. So yeah, be okay with the fact that it's social order or equilibrium that functionalism talks about. It has value consensus, there are social facts, have the mutual interdependence, the role allocation, all of those things. That's what you want to highlight when it comes down to functionalism. Then conflict theories, Marxism and feminism. Of course, conflict theories are about conflicts, whether it's conflict of class or conflict of gender, something is happening between these theories. So for Marxism, be sure to mention that it has a working class, you have the proletariat, you have the means of production, you have the hierarchy. And please know how to spell bourgeois, because a lot of persons don't know how to spell bourgeois. So if you go in there and you can't spell bourgeois, chances are you probably get like 1 mark less. So know how to spell bourgeois. All right.
Miss, me think them know whether I got penalized with that French word there.
I mean, the Caribbean does have French people, so we're a melting pot, aren't we? Please learn how to spell bourgeois. If you go in the exam and you tell me, say, you study this for a whole year, 9 months, you know, you do past papers on this, and you did an SBA, you don't know how to spell bourgeois or proletariat, me a mark it down. Sorry. I am going to mark it 9 months. 9 months? No, sir. You know what can happen in 9 months? A child can be born. That take time, you know. I don't know if spell bourgeois. Come on. Learn that. All right. So then we have, see that we get so caught up in a bourgeois, I'm not even remember to talk about feminism. So now you know conflict of the genders. We want to talk about how much you have different types of feminism. You have liberal feminists, you have the Marxist feminists, you have radical feminists. And even if you get to talk about, like you get, hi Tony, give me a second, let me finish the point. Even if you get to talk about two theories that they say, contrast, make a contrast between a conflict theory and a consensus theory. If you choose feminism, make sure you know stuff about those feminists now. Make sure you can highlight who's who. And you can talk about some years when it was formed and when it started becoming this and when it made its branches and all of that. Yeah. Tony, go ahead.
Mr. I was just saying that I was just telling everybody about Nancy Gonzalez, another popular Caribbean feminist. That's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Tony. Can you type it in the chat so persons can know? Okay. All right, so then we have interactionism, which is basically, making sense of everyday rules. And you have symbolic interaction, you have your labeling theory. Labeling theory is so cool. You have rational choice theory, and these are micro theories, just to be clear. Now, I know probably you guys had fun when you learned about all of these different theories because you could apply it to your lives. And this is what makes sociology so fun. It's what makes studying human behavior so fun. The fact that you can apply everything that you have learned to your society, it means that you're learning. That's important. So be sure to know, like I said, at least 2 theories for each theory. All right, you can know more, but at least 2. All right, so here are some fun facts. C. Wright Mills, he defined sociological imagination as the awareness of the relationship between personal experience and wider society. This means that the person has to see beyond his current or apparent realities and link it to the wider society. So like we were talking about earlier, Tony, what you need to understand is that you might have a view. To keep it unbiased is to remain sociologically imaginative. In doing that, you're able to prove that you have higher thinking, because then you can analyze a topic and you don't have to include yourself in it. All right. Primary socialization, is promoted by the family, while secondary is promoted by religion, education, mass media, and social media. Socialization involves learning of a society's norms and values through sanctions, whether positive or negative norms and values. Now we talk about culture and society. Now culture is so fun. Cultures learn behavior from previous generations. You have different types of culture. I was talking with somebody the other day, and I was saying to the person that I think there is some cultural renewal to Jamaicans eating jerk chicken on Fridays. Now, here's why I say that. We have different traditions in the Caribbean, whether you have peas and rice or rice and peas on a Sunday, whether you curry chicken or have chicken curried, whether you eat roti or you eat crab and kalaloo, you eat flying fish, you love ackee and saltfish, whatever it is. Sometimes with the food, and I'll speak about the food specifically here in this example, you'll have different areas where you have cultural retention. Now, some Jamaicans, they drink soup on Saturdays. Some don't. Some like fast food on weekends. But in all Jamaica, I know that most persons will eat rice and peas and chicken or any other form of protein on a Sunday. That's cultural retention. For renewal now, you have, your JCDC and all of that. But when you talk about different persons actually setting up pan chicken or jerk chicken stations Friday nights in different communities, it's becoming more and more popular, and it can be seen as a form of cultural renewal, because then it becomes our culture to eat jerk chicken or whatever. Some people make conch, some people make steamed fish on Friday nights. Anybody in here knows what a round robin is? You can raise your hand. to give off Wednesdays and Saturdays, to be honest. Yeah, Saturdays. Maybe Wednesday where you're from, Abidjan or Abijah. Just want to get your name right. Yeah. So that's basically that. Anybody knows what a round robin is? Raise your hand. Joshua, what's a round robin?
It's basically it's like a party.
Yeah, perfect. It's a party. So that is something that we've had for generations, but a lot of persons don't know it.
Miss,
Yeah, go ahead.
my mother just tell me, says like it's a new way of training partner, like a modern way of training partner now, or something like that.
Oh, I don't know about that, but here's the idea behind round robin. No. So for the past couple of generations, what has happened, Tony, is that persons who in their communities they want to have like a small party. Some people have street dances, they have something called a round robin. So it is like a party. It's just where a couple people get together and then just drink and listen to music. That is literally what it is. Now, different persons in more rural areas will have round robins. Persons who are in urban areas, they will go out, they will go to a restaurant, they might just find themselves at a club or whatever, and that's where they'll have their parties. But it's called round robins in rural areas. Honestly, let me tell you guys why I tell you this. I didn't know about this until I was studying sociology a few years ago. Because I'm from the urban area, so I wouldn't know. Go ahead, Ryan.
Actually, what Curly said isn't far off. Yes, it's a form of partner. So they, like how you do a partner where you have a date or every 2 weeks or a week or so, where you will hand the bank of money. You do hand in money, and that money accumulates to wherever. But the thing is that you keep a party so that other people in the runner being they come to your party to support, so that you're able to make that money, and then it like goes around
Thanks.
a circle until everybody like gets to have their party and like that. Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate that explanation, and that makes sense because then once your partner has accumulated cash value, you're able to celebrate it and celebrate it with others. No, that's something that I learned. Thank you. Go ahead, Brianna.
Yes, Miss, I was just saying that what the two young men were saying, but it's actually true because my brother owns a bar, and that's what he did when he has round robin. Like the person that's supposed to get a draw, they would have the party and they'd put a markup on the drinks that are supposed to be sold, and they'll get the profit would be split between the partner owner and the person that's getting a partner draw.
So that's good. Thank you. So here are just some examples of things that will happen in our culture that we might overlook, but trust me, guys, this does not happen in other places. Guys, I'm telling you, I've been to places, it doesn't happen. People barely, you see the way that we do things in the Caribbean, it's very different, which is why people respect us abroad because they really don't know how we do a lot of these things. Our culture, it's so diverse and rich, and it's filled with so much love and energy that a lot of persons are enlightened by it. And studying it, for example, studying sociology is just one way that you're able to learn so much more about how rich the culture is. So thanks, guys. All right, so we spoke about culture a little bit, and that goes into society. We talked about culture itself, but you know, when you're talking about culture, if you should outline the elements of culture when you're answering a question, you want to make sure that you include popular culture, counterculture, subculture, the different aspects of culture itself. All right. You want to talk about aspects of cultural change, which we talked about a little bit just now. How many round robins do you guys know about being held now? For example, you probably had more back then than you have now. But here's the thing, we have cultural erasure, which is the removal of culture. Then you have enculturation. A lot of persons know that to be adopting new forms of cultures. Then you have assimilation, culturation, cultural diffusion, all of that. You need to know about it. Now, for the characteristics
Miss,
of, yeah,
what about interacculturation?
that's a part of it too. These are just some elements that we highlight. Here's the thing. Hold on. Who was talking just now? I want to be able to identify.
Tony, Miss.
Tony? All right, Tony. You see, when you're in the syllabus, Tony, and like I said, you can use it as a study guide, and you use that and you tick them off all of what you would have studied already. It's important to know all of them. So you are on the right track. Don't get yourself wrong. Don't doubt yourself at all. You're on the right track. These are just some elements of culture that I would have identified. All right? Okay?
Yes, Miss. Yes, Miss.
Tony?
Yes, Miss. I was saying yes, yes. Understood.
Okay, good. Okay, perfect. All right. This slide, it goes back a little bit more, but I don't know why this ended up down here. So basically, you know, the characteristics of research, what they are, or what systematic inquiry actually requires, or what it includes rather. So you have inductive and you have deductive. So inductive, that's where you collect the data, you present it, you interpret it, and you infer, or you make a generalizations. But then for deductive now, you generalize first. Don't forget that. With deductive, you always generalize first, then you collect the data, then you accept or you reject the hypothesis. Know your data collection instruments, of course. You have the longitudinal, you have cross-sectional, participant observation, and secondary statistics. Know all of these. Qualitative, quantitative, be sure that you're abreast with all of these. No, you don't have to, or it doesn't have to happen where you get questions on these specifically. But guys, the more you know, the better you will be able to answer the questions. You'll be more equipped. Then we have the sampling. Please know sampling at least for each. Please, guys, hold on. This one too far. Know sampling techniques. Know what sampling is. Know that you have your probability and non-probability. At least that. So you know that you can expound on it a little bit and know what each of these mean, what your simple random is, what your systematic is, your snowball, convenience, multi-stage. Please know them. All right, guys. So moving on further, we're going to do ethics in research, and then we're going to take a little break. All right, guys. So for ethics in research, how many of you actually use these when you were doing your school-based assessment? You can raise your hand. All right, Tony. Yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
Joshua, Brenna, Tia. Okay, good, perfect. Here's the thing, a lot of persons don't use ethics when they're researching. So you want to make sure that you have informed consent if you're doing it with children. It has to be confidential, and these are things that you must know if you're answering a question based on ethics. You get a question on ethics, you want to highlight the fact that you need to have confidentiality. People have to have privacy when it comes to being respondents to questions. You need to guarantee the safety and protection of your respondents, etc. Avoiding plagiarism, all of that. So be sure to note all of that. What don't you don't know what is? Abijah, I want to know if it's Abijah or Abijah. Tell me what your name is.
Abijah.
Abijah? Okay, sorry about it. What don't you know? You don't know what is ethics?
Miss, I was saying I don't know what the red robin thing is.
I didn't hear you. Go again.
The red robin thing.
Round robin?
Oh yes, it's not red.
Yeah, okay. So we would have explained just now that a round robin is basically a party that somebody who would receive the draw after their partner would have. So they have a party after they receive the draw of their partner. It's called a round robin. That's where everybody in the community would come together and they'll celebrate that and they mark up the prices and they share the profits with the person who owns the bar. All right, Abijah? Okay, it's just something that I was using as an example, guys, of culture. Yeah. All right, guys, we're gonna go on a break now, and when we come back, we're going to just finish up everything. We're going to finish up module 2, finish module 3, and then we're gonna go through a past paper or 2. We've been here for an hour, basically. Some of you have been here from 1:30. So take a 5-minute break, we reconvene at 3 o'clock, and then we'll be talking more about module 2, 3, and doing past papers. All right, guys?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Miss,
Okay.
question.
Yeah,
Miss,
go
is it
ahead.
possible like teachers could query that CXC goes back to the old norm, like having 2 questions per module instead of 1?
It is possible. But if you didn't see anything about that this year, then it might just be that it's not going to happen. What you can do is be equipped with enough knowledge and application of that knowledge, and in order for if that were to happen, for example, in order to note what you need to note when it comes down to the exam. So if you have so much knowledge, then whether they put 1 or 2 questions on the paper, you'll be fine because you know everything, or you know. Understand?
Yes, miss.
Great. I said, I said, I said, I said,
Miss.
I said,
Miss.
I said,
Miss.
I said, Hi guys, sorry about that. Somebody raised their hand. Ooh. Let's go. All right, somebody's hand was raised. Was that Tony? Tony, what's up? All right, I guess it wasn't Tony. Can you guys hear me clearly? Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, we
Okay, all right, let's go. So for ethics, we spoke about that just now. Let's get into family type. So we know what the family is and we know the different types of family. Families, be sure to have an understanding of two theories of the family, at least two, because if you have two, then your knowledge will be proven. But if you know two and you can apply it to the Caribbean, you'll have a great explanation there. The application of knowledge will be useful enough to give you a good mark, right? So know the persons who are associated with different types of families, whether it is George Murdoch and functionalism, or it is the extended family, or you have the matrifocal family with Herskovitz. All of those persons, know them and the family types that they are associated with. And you need this for everyone as well. A change in the family structure, you need to know what these things are, right? What it means to persons when it comes on to family structures and how they were transformed by industrialization and urbanization. What it means now that we have less persons who are having children. What is meant by a yuppie? Now you don't have to put yuppie in, but does anybody knows what a yuppie is? Anybody?
No, miss.
no, miss.
Okay. All right. So yup.
No, miss. The
I
first time I hear that.
YUP. Yup. It's a young urban professional. You might notice that you have a lot of young persons who are choosing to have children later on in their lives rather than, yeah, it's a young urban professional. So it's somebody, a yuppie is what they refer to. It's somebody who is young and they're not ready to have children. They might live alone. They might not even be interested in having a relationship. They want to focus on themselves. So a yuppie is short, well, it's really what it's called, a young urban professional. They're called yuppies. Not that you have to put it on the exam, I'm just telling you a term that's, yeah. So young urban professionals, something to know, something to recognize that, you used to have families who were big persons who used to have farms, who used to have their children so that their children could work on the farms. And then you had persons who went off during industrialization and urbanization to work for their families. And now we have persons who pursue education more than they pursue families, education and careers more than they pursue the family itself. Yeah, yuppie, Abijah. Okay. I mean, yeah. I think it can be both, Tony. All right. Then we have the family theories of interest. Of course, you have social pathology theory, that's very good, which explains how loose and unstable the family is. And then the Oscar Lewis subculture theory. Subculture theory it's very detailed. This is about the single parent households and how they struggle in poverty due to fatalism and how they're highly dependent on social welfare, which is something that you can see and something that you can actually, maybe if you are in that type of society, you can actually relate to. Tony, go ahead.
Miss, I don't know what fatalism is.
Death, Tony, it's associated with death.
Where's that, miss?
Death, it's associated with death.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it's literally the belief. It like basically have a submissive attitude towards events, right? So like a belief that everything is inevitable. For example, like it must happen. This is why it is happening. So, for example, and let me link it back to death. you have somebody who says, you know, sir, before fair reason, yeah, just like I must poor. Everybody come on the earth. Everybody have a purpose. My purpose is to be poor. You understand?
There's like a functionalist where everybody have a reason why them.
No. Here's the difference. Here's what you want to identify. Functionalists, they usually show everybody's function or everybody's role in society. They say everybody plays a part. Now, me just saying, just explaining fatalism, it doesn't mean that fatalists are functionalists. Fatalists, they just think that it is inevitable. It just has to happen. Like, for example, it's kind of like you're being indifferent, like you don't care at all. You don't care about anything. Like, let me think of another example. So you get up and you decide, say, well, you not decide. You have 12 children. Well, somebody must feed them. You understand?
There's that, okay, Miss,
Oh, yes, miss.
Yes. Yes, so you're thinking, well, something have to happen. Me don't know, but something have to happen. Maybe I don't make a take on the responsibility, but something have to happen. For example, with the subculture theory, they might say, all right, our government problem this. You get me?
yes,
You guys
Miss.
understand? Okay, perfect. All right, so we can talk about education systems now and the trends in education systems. We talked about this earlier, the underachievement of males, the females who will have more. Joshua, go ahead with your question.
It's not a question, but I was reading somewhere where like they talk about like male underachievement and like less role models for boys. So like I think Errol Miller and like Barry Chavan talked about the feminization of like education and how education is no longer being associated with like masculinity, and the fact that there are more female teachers within the education system, and thus it doesn't allow for role models for boys, and female teachers teach in a way that's conducive to like female learning styles rather than males.
That's very insightful. Thank you. Okay, so like you were saying, female achievement in exams, we can talk about that. We can talk about female matriculation into male-dominated subject areas. We talked about the engineering. I mentioned that a few moments earlier. And the
Construction
changing,
worker.
the what?
Construction work as well.
Yes, of course, construction workers. The changing in gender stereotyping in subject choices, that's another thing too. So you guys want to be able to highlight all of these or identify different types of them, and it can be argued too that here's something interesting. It can be argued that there are more females in the world than there are males. So ultimately, females will dominate classrooms more, and ultimately, female teachers will dominate classrooms more, right? So you can always talk about that. All right, so moving on. When we talk more about the education system, you want to mention that it's academic. There's a hidden curriculum, and you have formal education, you have formal schooling, traditional schooling, different from the untraditional one. All right. Guys, be sure to know the theories behind education, the interactionist view, the labeling theory, the Marxist view, Bowles and Gentes, talk about functionalists with Davis and more, can talk about Max Weber, who believed that education was responsible for changing class dynamics, creating possible status, prestige, and power situations.
Miss?
Yes, go ahead.
Question about the Bowles and Gentles view, miss, that one? Yeah, yes, the Bowles and Gentes. Miss, is that the one where they're saying that the longer you stay in school is better because you learn more? Or is it something similar to that?
Oh, these are actually Marxist. So it's not something that promotes it, it's something that states, remember Marxism is a conflict theory, so something that states that basically education is linked to brainwashing the working class, thinking that they're actually doing good when they're just learning to work or learning to be a part of the working class. Joshua, go ahead.
Oh, Miss, in relation to what Tony said, the Bowles and Gintis said that a high IQ is not the cause of a long stay in school, but like a consequence.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So they mentioned that it's meritocratic and it just reproduces social class inequality. That's basically what they do. Somebody else had something to say? Go back to the
Miss, could you
slide.
repeat, Miss, could you repeat what you said a while ago about Mary Cross, the M word?
I hear you. This one?
You see, he's talking about meritocracy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes,
What did you say?
I was asking you to repeat what you said about it, please.
Oh, I was just saying that Bowles and Ginty said that that's what education was. It was about being meritocratic. It doesn't describe them as who they are, it just says that they reproduce, or education reproduces the social class and social inequality. All right, so another one we have is religion. We talk about religion, there are so many different persons who have a lot to say. Just remember, everybody knows this. Marx said religion is the opium of the masses. If you use that as one quote, it's literally like the most popular quote ever.
It's a
Religion is the
perfect
opium.
thesis statement.
Huh?
I'm saying sorry, it would be a perfect introductory statement.
Yes, yes, it could be if you're talking about the Marxist view of religion. It could be a perfect topic sentence. If you're going to use that, I wouldn't recommend anybody use that for their attention grabber. I wouldn't recommend anybody use that in their thesis. I wouldn't recommend anybody use that anywhere but a topic sentence and in the body. Yeah, that's where it's relevant.
Oh, Miss,
You can talk about,
Miss, I was asking, Miss, could the Kevin Smith situation be used in for that? For the Marxist view, Marxism view?
Well, let's see. That was a popular one, but
Me,
I don't know if it's that popular. I'm
me,
thinking, yes.
I think it could use because when you talk about secularization within religion, then Kevin Smith would be like the perfect one because then you will see people moving away from the dominant or the once dominant religion, which would have been like Catholic or the Anglican person creating their own. And remember, it happened within the Caribbean, and it was a popular situation where you see where people move away from the dominant religion and farming there are following someone who created a worship or a place of worship or a type of religion. So I think it
That's
would be
true,
a perfect
Yolanda.
one.
And your example is justified. Here's what I'm saying. I don't want you guys to get too much into the example, even though it is a link to the Caribbean society. What I want you guys to be able to do is you're supposed to be able to talk about that in one line or one sentence. Don't use too much of it to explain anything. Use it as an example. So when you're stating examples, you just say it and you move on. Don't go into it, and this goes into going off topic. So yes, you can talk about how it is an example of secularization. However, I don't want you guys to go too much in depth when you're talking about it because it was something that we are very informed about. And when you're writing an essay, you want to be able to tell whoever is reading the essay the full details of everything. But remember two things. You don't need to go off topic, and there is time associated with the essay that you're writing. So if you can explain or expound or give the Kevin Smith as an example, Kevin Smith situation as an example, without not going off topic and without not going too much, taking up too much time, then sure. All right?
Okay, miss.
Perfect. I really don't want you guys to miss the point. So if you're going to say, okay, secularization is this, you define it and you talk about persons or theorists who would have mentioned it, and you say, an example is the pastor or preacher, Kevin Smith, who was found giving his congregation permission to kill each other in 2021. So, you know, you get me where I just kind of summarize it?
Yes, miss.
Yeah, perfect. All right, good. So Durkheim, Comte, and Marx know their views of religion. Now we come to social stratification. Now this is very important because when I talk about stratification, I talk about the levels that are through it. The inequality, the different social groups that are ranked above one another. You have the institutionalization of inequality. Everybody is on a status or in a social position, and remember there are two types of status. We have ascribed and we have achieved. When it comes down to ascribed status, you know that based on your race, your color, your sex, your caste, or your class. But then achieved status is based on merit. That's with your ethnicity, can be with your gender or your class. Now, here are some examples of ascribed status based on your birth. Now, for your race, it's your physical or biological characteristics that you acquire at birth. It can include the color of your skin, your hair texture, how your face shape, your sex, biological makeup of a human being. Now, for the benefit of CAPE Sociology, we're going to limit sex to two genders, male and female. Then we have color, which is the complexion of somebody. And moving on to achieve status. Hold on. Tony, what's that W? For achieve status, we have ethnicity, sense of belonging or having identity. And gender is the psychological and cultural expectations of a person. Now, like I said, talking about it in a result of being male or female. Now, for stratification, when we talk about its context, it can be open or it can be closed. We know when it was closed when you had more agrarian societies. The Indians caste system, you know what countries are involved with those, you know that Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana and even some parts of Suriname, they're popular for that. If you want to, you can check out some YouTube videos on it before your exam so you can, you know, have some sort of explanation in your head about it. And you have those who are open, those who have achieved status that's based on the post-colonial and post-industrial Caribbean society. That's where you're more than likely able to see an open stratification. Tony, go ahead.
Miss, the question I had, Mrs. What's the difference between open stratification and closed stratification from ascribed and achieved?
Ascribed and achieved are the two types of or forms of social stratification. And open and closed context of stratification means that it's either able, hold on. If you can move up or you have social mobility, you can have social mobility, then it's open. If you can't, then it's closed. The ascribed and the achieved is the form of it. So it's whether you would have had a closed system because of your race or because of your sex or because of your color, or you had an open system because of your education. The system was open. Yeah, born poor, married poor, it's a closed system. So you can't move in the closed system. Describe and achieve are just the forms of stratification, how it can be formed. Now, if we define social mobility, we can say that it's a vertical or horizontal movement within the social hierarchy. It's generally occurring in an open society. For vertical, it's upward or downward, but for horizontal, it's a lateral movement within the hierarchy. So it can change based on occupational status. Right, so when you want to understand the horizontal different from the vertical, know that horizontal can come through job classification. Now your class might not change or where you are might not change, but your position in that might change. Yeah, intergenerational and intragenerational social mobility, right, Tony? So with vertical, it can go up or it can go down. But with horizontal, you just move across, basically. So here we go with understanding intragenerational versus intergenerational. So intragenerational, it's the movement of a person in a class hierarchy within the same generation or lifetime. No, I cannot send you the doc after mine. I can't. And then inter is the movement of a person in a class hierarchy across several generations, slow and gradual process. All right. So intra is one generation or lifetime, and inter is a lot. So factors that account for social mobility. Now you can have the macro factors and the individual factors. So for macro, their rights and freedoms, the access to public education and gender equity. But then where you have individual, it's kind of more of diligence, savings, marriage or relationships, like what Abijah was saying. Macro, it's on a larger scale than for the individual, constitutional and the statute law in post-colonial countries. So these are things that would have changed in some countries, which would have allowed the system to be open as opposed to closed. But then when it's an individual now, it's between you, it's like smaller, micro. All right, guys, let's hurry up. So let's talk about inter a little bit more. This occurs due to a person's status within the hierarchy as a result of a previous generation's family-inspired improvement. Yes, individual, because it's a person like marrying somebody else, is one. Okay, hold on. So, intragenerational occurs due to a person elevating his status within his or her own lifetime. So Shanoya, if I was born in a poor family and I decided that I'm going to get a job and I'm going to become a middle class person, I'm going to live in where can I live? Let me think. Okay, let's say I live at Caymanas or I live at Stonebrook or me just live a one scheme house, guys. All right. Now I'm a part of the middle class. I drive, I go to work every day. Yeah, me live a one scheme house.
Caribbean estate, miss.
Yeah, Caribbean estate somewhere. Live in a one scheme house. Me in a middle class. So moving from that is intra, right? One, his or her own lifetime. But then internal is within the hierarchy as a result of previous generation or family inspired improvement. So let's say my mother was born poor and her mommy was a dressmaker. My mother became a clothing store owner and I became a doctor. So my grandmother make clothes, mother own a store, and then me become a doctor. It's a couple generations.
It's a miss. So what if it's a case where your family was broke, right? And then like your father, he created a famous company, like let's say Microsoft. Would that be intergenerational? Because you're moving from when he was poor, he grew up, he created Microsoft, he got rich, and then your family now, along the line, you have generational wealth. So I'm asking if
If
it would be
if
considered
he if
generational.
he made the family rich and other persons did not improve based on what he did, it's just intra because he's the one that did it. It's within his or her own lifetime.
So
Yeah.
you have to
So it's
take.
constant improvement that makes it inter because then it's more than one and not just one.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Miss. I understand now.
So yeah. All right, so social stratification, Lord Brathwaite, Trinidad and Tobago. He spoke about using the notion of value consensus. He claimed that the main aspects of inequality were linked to particularistic biases, and they were from ascription. So basically, the flourishing of race, color, and class stratification. This is what he spoke about within this. We have M.G. Smith study of social stratification, the plantation society model. As this is so great. Like, don't you just love studying sociology? It's so amazing. What happened after World War II? The fact that there was access to formal education. We just talked about this. The laws that changed that made a closed system, that it made a closed system possibly open. Those are the things that you want to discuss when it comes on to social stratification, plantation society model, which George Beckford explained that there was persistent poverty because it was a total institution, the plantation society, and our lives were in there, and social stratification was apparent in there in our social relations. And we were marginalized back then, and it comes back now to even this, to right now. Color and class mobility, we can see where this is evident with Gordon's study of intergenerational mobility after emancipation, and where there was economic growth, and there are these opportunities now that the non-industrial peasant classes had back then. Suin and Ryan also spoke about this in Trinidad and Tobago. We had Sweet and Reddock talk about feminism and feminism being a part of social mobility in the Caribbean. We have the functionalist approach, which was talked about by Parsons and Davis and Moore. We have the critique of the functionalist perspective when it comes down to that, because there's this notion with the functionalists that important to have a job and the equal opportunity and the meritocracy. You have Max Weber, which critiques Marxism when it comes down to social stratification. You have the difference between Weber and Marx on stratification. So Weber notes that it's not always based on skills and diligence, but Marx said that there's some polarization and it's not always evident, and there may be improved standard of living, but it doesn't mean that everything is going well, because it just might mean that it's just another thing for the bourgeois to get more present in the working class. Then Weber believes that there is a revolution, which is possible, but he's not certain, as Marx says it will be, because Marx says that they'll come to some realization after they've been mistreated for a while, but it doesn't necessarily proves to be true. All right, I want to hurry through the past papers because really past time. Just do this a little bit. Oh, we're done. Yeah. All right. So thanks guys for listening to this. I want to go into past papers now. Let me just share that. Sorry. Okay, let's go. All right, so the 3 questions, 3 sections. Let's talk about this. Sociological concepts, perspective, and methods. So you ask huh?
Sorry to disturb. I was asking if you could zoom in. I can't really see it.
You can't see?
No, miss.
Hold on.
Perfect.
Hold on. You can see it too?
No, miss.
All right, let me just go back to here then. Good?
Yes, miss.
All right, so module 1. You are asked to conduct research on domestic violence in the common law family unit. Describe the research design you would use and provide a justification for your choice. Let's answer this question. So what are we doing first? First things first, what are we doing? Guys, Tony, go ahead.
You're doing a research.
Yeah?
So
On
you're going to
domestic
state,
violence.
yes, miss. So you're going to state which research method you'd use, whether
Whether qualitative or
or
quantitative.
quantitative. But you'd use qualitative here.
Hold on,
Miss, I
guys.
think first,
But
Yeah? Hold
but
on,
miss,
guys.
Miss,
Raise
is
your
it
hands, raise your hands.
two
Raise your hands.
of them?
Hold on, raise your hands. Joshua, go ahead.
Miss, I think first you'd have to like define your key terms. So like domestic violence and the common law family unit.
Okay, thanks
Or
for your
define
point,
research
Joshua.
first and those.
Okay, thanks for your point, Joshua. Brianna, go ahead.
Yes, Miss, I was just about to say the same thing.
All
To
right,
define
Brianna
key
agrees.
points.
Brianna agrees with Joshua. Yolanda?
So miss, after defining all of those terms, you could go ahead
Yolanda,
and
we are not aware of what we do yet. I'm asking what would you do?
I would state the type of research I would do, miss, whether qualitative or quantitative research are using both.
Okay, Tony.
Oh, no, miss, me did don't answer. What anything else was there?
Brianna?
Miss, I'd say analyze the question and see to the fact that they're asking about domestic violence in a common law family unit. You say to yourself whether you're dealing with a large sample size or a small sample size, and then you can evaluate which research design you would use that can best fit the research topic that you're doing.
Okay, thanks everybody. So let's say that we decide that we're going to answer this question. The first thing I would note, well, the first thing I do rather, I'd figure out this. This. And note this word. Hold on. This one is the question asking about family or is it asking about research?
Research.
Okay. All right. Note that though it's asking about research, it's important that you know the type of family unit that you're researching. Now, when we talk about research, if you want to know the definitions, you have to highlight your 3 key points that you're going to talk about. Remember, we spoke about that. 3 key points. It says, describe the research design you would use and provide a justification for your choice. Now, out of that, you need 3 points. maybe 3 descriptions. Maybe we're going to talk about 3 elements of the specific research design that we're going to use, whether quantitative or qualitative. But in our justification, we're going to have 3 points on why we're using this research design. All right? Might seem like a boring question, but it's not. So if you're conducting a research on domestic violence, how we're going to start it is statistics. And we start and we say over 50% of common law families have been proven, or statistically 50% of common law family units have had issues with domestic violence for the past 3 decades. Start. Are you hearing me?
Yes, Miss. Sorry. Question, Miss. Is that an accurate, is that just an example, or?
That's an example. It's just an example. This is all just examples. So if you want to get into it, and you know that it has been proven, or you can say there has been much debate surrounding common law family units and domestic violence in the past 3 decades. I use 3 decades because it's a generation. That's literally a whole generation. So it can be argued. You can define the common law family unit if you want to. In the introduction, I recommend that you do. And you can define domestic violence as well. You have to know what these things are. If you know what they are, then you'll be able to choose a research design, and then you can provide a justification. But essentially, you're starting with your attention grabber. You want to make sure that it's something that will be linked to the question. All right? Then you go a little bit more down after you've defined all of your key terms. After we've defined our key terms, then we're going to link our definitions to our thesis. So in the link, for example, you'd say domestic violence is the act of physical, verbal, or emotional abuse within the home or within a family unit. And then you want to link that, and you want to say that in researching, or an appropriate research design for domestic violence within the common law family unit would be whatever it would be a, let's say it would be a qualitative design, research design, due to its nature and you can give 3 different elements of the qualitative research design. Again, this is just an example. All right.
Miss, is there an option to like include like the triangulation method?
Of course. Why not? Okay. It's your research design that you're doing.
Miss, could a case study be used as well?
I mean, you're researching it. If you're going to use one case, then yeah, it's just a case study. It's not really a research. It's just a case study. You're researching the one case. But I don't think a case study would be appropriate here. I think it would be best if you use triangulation method, or I mean, you can try quantitative. I don't know if you can get no answers out of people. So as long as you can justify your choice, yeah, as long as you can justify your choice. No, in providing a justification, because you want to make sure that you can get all of these 25 marks. Well, this is out of 17. In providing your justification, be sure that you list each of them and you go in depth with them. Now, the B part of the question says explain 2 ethical issues that should be taken into consideration when conducting your research. Now, this is something that's important as well. Survey. Abijah, surveys are great. To see if you can provide justification, remember that domestic violence it's kind of It's a sensitive topic, Abaisha, and that's something that you have to recognize, that when they ask you for sensitive topics, you want to be as discreet as possible. Yes. So now when we go down into part B, like Tony said, ethical stuff that you want to consider, confidentiality is one. What's another ethical issue that we have to take into consideration, guys? You can type it in the chat. Privacy. Privacy is confidentiality. Tracy. Another ethical issue is, yeah, consent. Consent. Yeah, informed consent, that's completely correct. Because if you're going to interview children, of course, you have to have their parents' permission.
Confidentiality.
Yes, we spoke about confidentiality. It's in the chat.
Miss voluntary participation.
Yeah, because sometimes people don't give them the permission to do that. Yes, that's of course important. So, like I said before, guys, when we're discussing ethical issues, you want to make sure that you have or you're abreast with them so that if they get a question on it, you know what exactly you're doing. All right, here's section B question. It says, using relevant examples to support your response, critically assess the extent to which functionalist theory of the family can be used to explain any three family forms in the Caribbean. Let's talk about that. What are we doing first?
Miss, by family forms is referring to the different types of families?
Yes, yes, yes.
All right, Miss. So first, you're going to state what the functionalist theory is.
Hold on, Tony. Remember, we raise our hands.
Sorry.
Joshua, go ahead.
Mr. All right, first, it's important to like define what is a family and what family
See that you like
forms
definitions, Joshua. That's important, yes. Go ahead, continue.
Okay, miss. Then you talk about the functionalist perspective on the family. What type of family does the functionalist talk about? And to what extent can the definition or the description of a family of the functionalist be applied, or to what extent can it be applied to like Caribbean family forms?
Okay, thanks for your input, Joshua. Tony, you can go ahead now.
Yes, Miss. So, well, what I was saying that you'd first state what the functionalist theory is. You state how it applies to family. You state what the functionalist theory says about family, and then you'd state the three different types of family, and then compare each using the functionalist theory.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Guys, remember that this question is asking you to do something different from question number one. Question one asks you to describe, and you need to know what these things mean. When you're critically assessing something, it means that you are going to put them against each other. You're basically kind of contrasting them. So you want to be sure that you have more than one. So when you're talking about this, I'm not saying that you're gonna compare and contrast two different perspectives, because it doesn't ask you that. It says critically assess the extent to which the functionalist theory of family can be used to explain any three family forms in the Caribbean. So you want to critique the functionalist perspective when you're talking about these other family forms. And don't forget, Tony, when you're writing, that you need to be able to define the key terms, because you're writing as if the marker does not know anything at all. You're basically educating this person. So you want to write and be sure to include all information. So the person might read the question. Do it like you're writing an advanced paper, but you need a 12-year-old to understand it. So using relevant examples to support your response, critically assess the functionalist theory of the family can be used to explain any three family forms in the Caribbean. You want to be sure that you have relevant examples for each family form. You want to be sure that you have a critique for each family form. You want to be sure that whatever you're doing, it includes the functionalist theory and your assessment of the functionalist theory when applied to this family form. So of course, functionalist theory can be applied to the nuclear family. But when we talk about the extended family or matrifocal family, that's where we assess it and that's where we include other theories and we say, though the functionalist explain the nuclear family in depth, or you can talk about how it's a normal thing in Europe. It doesn't explain Caribbean society families or families in the Caribbean societies that might be extended or matrifocal or might be even single parent families. So you want to be sure that you can expound on those things in your body paragraphs. But don't forget that the introduction is important as well because it does set the tone for your essay. All right. So anybody has any questions about this question specifically? Edith Clark, yeah. Edith Clark did talk about matrifocal families.
Miss Anne Herskovitz and Fraser.
Yeah. So in answering this question, note that they're asking you to use relevant examples and note as well that they're asking you to assess it. So to the degree of, to what degree is the functionalist right about any form of the family? And if you want to debunk the functionalist theory as much as possible, you can talk about any three that aren't nuclear. You can apply it to any three that aren't nuclear.
Miss, I can talk about how they fail to recognize the functionality of those different family types. So, for instance, the extended family is present because of the economic, the socioeconomic conditions of the region, for example.
Yeah, that's true. So that's something that you can talk about too. But like I was saying before, it is inclusive. The functionalist perspective is really based on the European style of the family. That's something that you have to note. All right, guys, let's go into question 3. So question thesis, for a named Caribbean society, discuss the changes that occurred in the patterns of social mobility over the past 50 years. Over the past 50 years. What are we doing firstly, guys?
Social stratification?
Yeah, this is what it is, but for a named Caribbean society, so first you have to name what society you're doing. You can choose. Let's choose Jamaica. Yeah, we can choose Haiti. We can even choose Guyana. Whichever one you want to choose, just make sure that in your discussion you can choose, you can have relevant examples for the question. Discuss the changes that occurred in the patterns of social mobility over the past 50 years. I would choose a Southeast Caribbean country. Let me tell you why. You see, we have closed systems, closed caste systems like Guyana and Trinidad, where you have a lot of Indian families, though as Jamaicans, we wouldn't know too much about them if we are not educated or informed, or we don't have friends or family members there. And that is in and of itself a way to prove that we are self, because you don't know a lot about them. I would choose one of those countries because it has been those countries which you've seen the most social mobility occur. No, I'm not saying that in the other parts of the Caribbean you wouldn't have it, but I'm saying that that's where you see most of it. So you can find places like Jamaica, for example, that we used before. Jamaica, to have a lot of social mobility? No, because of education. And where that's great and where that's proven, you can also have other Caribbean countries. So if you decide that you're going to choose something different, it would help, because then you probably would have a different paper from everybody else. Now, I'm not leading everybody down to Southeast Caribbean, but all I'm saying is you can identify another country other than the most popular countries. or the larger Caribbean countries or the greater Antilles. So you can consider that. So a named Caribbean society. So one, you need to name your Caribbean society. Which one are you choosing? If you're going to discuss it, you're going to weigh pros and cons. That's what a discussion is. So a discussion has both sides of the story. You have the good and the bad. What changes have occurred in the patterns of social mobility over the past 50 years? Now, 50 years is a very, very, very long time. 50 years is close to independence. So 50 years ago, what were we doing? It was the 1970s. People were just becoming independent. In fact, some Caribbean countries weren't even independent yet. And we would have had persons being able to access education, a lot of families being able to now work in different places that they weren't able to work before, but it still meant that some part of the system was closed, whether it was the certain type of persons that they allowed to work in banks, etc. Joshua, go ahead.
Miss, when they talk about like patterns of social mobility, does that mean like vertical or horizontal and like intergenerational and intragenerational?
Patterns would suggest that it's something that has continuously happened over time, an overlap or a similarity in things. So, for example, females have been overlooked for certain jobs, or the male is seen as the one who is undereducated. For example, a pattern is something that has happened a lot of times. So that's what you want to focus on. So patterns of social mobility might include the fact that you have persons who have maybe their race would carry them in a different area that somebody else's races would not bring them, their gender, or even their age. Because you might find that a lot of persons, younger persons are overlooked if older persons are there. Let's talk about politics. Here's one fact. Politicians, they don't have to retire at 65. They can go to probably 80. But all other occupations, they have to retire at a certain time. Why? I have two persons. Yolanda, go ahead.
So, Miss, like for instance, in this case, could you speak about Brathwaite's research where he speaks on the fact that back then status was given to you by ascription where certain color persons could only work in a bank or they're
Yeah.
expected to be working in a bank. So could you speak about his research about
Yes,
this?
of course. And don't get me wrong, guys, you're supposed to be including theorists in your pros and your cons. So what are the pros of the patterns? What are the cons of the patterns? What group of persons have been left out because of these patterns? Who has been included?
Mr. Marcus theory.
You can use any theory, Tony. What I'm saying is I can back it up by showing that it is a pattern. Joshua, go ahead.
Miss, in addition to what Yolanda said about Brathwaite's study and how like ascription back then was what basically determined a status, you can use that or you can contrast that to like Selwyn Ryan's like theory where he says that uh, within like Trinidad ascriptive factors are now like fading. Well, no. He talked about how political reform and like educational reform increases like social mobility now.
Yeah,
And
so
so
you
you can
can.
maybe say ascriptive factors no longer play a major role in social stratification now, whereas the system has become more meritocratic, more open, and like facilitates social mobility on the basis of like education, um, and
That's
like
true.
things like that.
Yes, that's true. All right, guys. Give me a second. My laptop battery is dying. I need to find a charger. Hold on. Okay, so basically, like I was saying just now, yes, Joshua, yes, Yolanda, you're correct in your assessment of the question. What I want you guys to recognize is when they ask you for an answer and they say discuss, it's weighing the pros and the cons of it. So whatever they ask you for, that's what it's about. All right. Okay, do you guys have any more questions overall? Guys?
Not really, miss.
No. Is anything clear to you based on what we would have discussed today?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
All right.
Yes, miss.
All right. Do you feel more prepared for your exam?
Yes, I
Honestly,
know, because while I'm knowledgeable in, I'd say most things, there's still something that I need to brush up on, and this session taught me that.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that you guys got the help that you needed because I know that some of you were nervous about this. So don't be nervous. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is there will be another second in this Zoom room. We're gonna leave, like I said before, it wasn't going to be about
For paper 1, miss?
2 hours. There's gonna be another session held in this Zoom room. Like I said, we're not going to go past 2 hours. So I'm gonna just wrap it up. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you for choosing to do it with us. This is something that we do every year, and I know that when you guys ready to do paper one, you're going to come back and practice. And when you don't, and when you have unit 2, you can come back and practice with us as well. All right. So all the best on your exam, guys. If you have any questions, you can text in the WhatsApp group, and you can let me know what you need help with further. Okay.
thank you.
Yes, miss.
Yes,
Thank you,
miss.
miss.
Thank you, miss.
You're welcome. Have a great rest of the
Bye,
day.
sister.
Bye,
All right,
guys.
thank you.
Thank you, miss.